Please welcome Downtown Seattle Association Board Chair Sung Yang.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 2025 State of Downtown, our 20th State of Downtown event. We are delighted to be back in the Seattle Convention Center Summit Building, an incredible facility that welcomes tens of thousands of people to downtown each year, helping propel us on the path to progress and continued revitalization. Just wait until next week when this venue welcomes 85,000 people for Emerald City Comic-Con. Yeah, that's worth clapping, okay? It's not just a huge boon to downtown, but it's truly a sight to behold. So get ready, all you die-hard cosplayers and MCU fans, because I see you. This month, construction began on the privately funded Elliott Bay Connections project, and later this spring, after nearly 2 decades, we will celebrate the completion of Waterfront Park. Woo! Yeah, give it up. These efforts will redefine what it means to experience downtown Seattle. We've already seen the catalytic effect of the Seattle Aquarium's new Ocean Pavilion and the Waterfront Park's Overlook Walk. And you're going to hear more about the immediate impact of these spaces during today's program. And later this year, groundbreaking will take place on a new memorial stadium at Seattle Center set to open in 2027. That's right. Investment in downtown is strong, and we continue to benefit from creative, public-private, nonprofit partnerships. It's that sort of all-hands-on-deck approach that has led to real progress on issues that for too long seemed intractable. Mayor Bruce Harrell's downtown activation team is a prime example. Mayor Harrell will join us in a moment and speak to the steps that his office and partners have taken to make dramatic, positive differences in the heart of downtown, and we thank the mayor for his continued leadership. For this year's keynote, we're excited to welcome Mark Dunkelman, a Brown University Fellow in International and Public Affairs who just recently released his book, Why Nothing Works, Who Killed Progress, and How to Bring It Back. It has timely and instructive advice applicable for local and national issues, and you'll hear from Mark Dunkelman shortly. That's right, let's give Mark a hand. DSA President and CEO John Scholes will take the stage with the State of Downtown address. John will detail the progress that's been made in revitalizing our city's core, challenges for the year ahead, and opportunities to accelerate that progress. And after John, we will wrap up the program with a surprise special guest who just wanted to stop by and say hello. So if you're joining us today and you are not a DSA member, which given this crowd is hard for me to believe, we invite you to become a part of this great community of business, arts, and nonprofit leaders who are passionate about this place. And you can learn more about the DSA membership by visiting our website, downtownseattle.org. Now, I'd like to recognize our generous event sponsors. First, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Ballard Spar Lane Powell. And in a bit, you'll be hearing from managing partner Paige Davis. Vanguard sponsor is Alaska Airlines. Our innovator sponsor is Mortensen. Today's convener sponsor is the Seattle Convention Center. An appreciation to our visionary sponsors, Amazon, BXP, Clark Construction, Hudson Pacific Properties, Lease Crutcher Lewis, Merrill Lynch Wealth Management, Ani Group, Schwabe Williamson & Wyatt, and Urban Renaissance Group. And today's live music sponsor is PMC Bank, and you'll be able to join the band at our post-event reception. Appreciation also goes out to all 15 of this year's steward sponsors for your contribution in helping us bring you this year's State of Downtown. And also thanks to our media partner, the Puget Sound Business Journal. Now, please help me thank all our sponsors, partners, and our 46 corporate seating hosts. Finally, let's give a special welcome to the elected leaders who are here today, and please hold your applause until they are all announced. First, we have four-termer and the longest-serving county executive in the history of the known universe, King County Executive Dow Constantine. King County Assessor John Arthur Wilson. King County Prosecuting Attorney Lisa Mannion. King County Council Member Gurmai Zahalai and Rod Dombowski. Port of Seattle Commissioners Ryan Calkins and Sam Cho. Seattle City Attorney Ann Davidson. Seattle City Council Members, Council President Sarah Nelson and Bob Kettle. Thank you all for being with us today. Now, before we move on, I have one more housekeeping item, and that is that we encourage you to join and amplify today's conversation and post about this event on social media using the hashtag SOD2025. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion about the state of your downtown. And now it is my pleasure to welcome our Seattle Mayor, who we know there is no one working harder than to keep the buzz on the Sonics alive, sometimes at his own peril. Our beloved and one and only Mayor Bruce Harrell.
Thank you, Sung. And for the record, my wife laughs at all my jokes. But we won't be hearing a lot of jokes about the Sonics or anything like that. I'm very excited. I'm excited to hear from Mark Dunkelman, and I'm excited to see all of you sharing the energy of what I'm going to describe in a few minutes. I start by recognizing that I certainly can't do it alone. The elected leaders here cannot do it alone. The DSA are known for building these kind of collaborative partnerships, and so I'm very thankful that here in Seattle we have this kind of ecosystem, and I do not take that for granted as your mayor. Looking back in 2024, we made incredible progress. I hope you'll agree that it's fueled in, I don't want to say in large part, but it's consistent with and aligned with what we are describing as our downtown activation plan. It's coordinated action, very strategic. It created a shared vision for a safe, active, and thriving city core. And I spent a lot of time talking to mayors all around the country on what this takes. Today is a shining example of what powerful transformations are possible when we come together. And again, I share with you that mayors would die for this kind of ecosystem of people, civic leaders, political leaders, philanthropic leaders, nonprofits, profit-based businesses working together. Look at what is happening. And when I describe downtown, I'm not describing a Monday to Friday pit stop. We talk about Sunday to Sunday neighborhoods where people can truly thrive, live, work, and play and explore every day of the week. 11 million visitors downtown last summer, starting 2025 very strong, with 2 million visitors in January alone. 10.5 million visitors to Seattle Center last year. That's 2.2 million monorail boardings. That's up 19%. We averaged nearly 97,000 daily workers this January, the highest daily average since March 2020. More than 100,000 people, of course, call downtown home. Now, we know that our path to continued progress downtown begins and must center around safety. That is my charter responsibility, and to show a little partiality toward the city council members that are here, they know that that is their charter responsibility as well. So when I took office over 3 years ago, we launched and developed and created the vision for what we affectionately call DAP, D-A-P, Downtown Activation Plan. In the first 5 months of DAT, priority 1 calls are down over 50%, EMS dispatches are down 15%, violent crime is down 14% across downtown, with a projected 20% decrease along 3rd Avenue in the Pike Pine core. We are expanding DAT to now cover other locations downtown, including the CID and 12th and Jackson, and you are seeing results. Now, this has to be very intentional, quite honestly. I say to you, ladies and gentlemen, that if we are to create the city that we all love, we have to be very strong in doing so. Fatal overdoses fell by 25.1% in Seattle 2024, outpacing King County because of our work to create an ecosystem of public health solutions. That's where I'm very proud that King County Executive Dow Constantine is here with some of his council members, because in the health space, they recognize the urgency of the hour. So we created our care department, and many of you have heard me talk about it before. It has responded to over 1,400 calls for service and is staffed now with 24 behavioral health responders. Now, we started this pilot downtown because that's where we saw the most acute need. But you saw the positive work that resulted from our efforts, and now we've demonstrated this pilot downtown, which has allowed us to expand the program citywide. Let's talk about police officers for the moment. For the first time in 5 years, we've hired more police officers than we lost. 4,300 applications, the most. We have the most applications since 2013. That's more than double those received in 2023. Last month, we hired 19 new officers. In January 2024, the preceding year, we'd have hired only 6. So that's over a threefold increase of what we're doing. Now, what's the bottom line? The bottom line is we are changing the trajectory of what we're doing relative to public safety, and I have a lot of people to thank for that, particularly members on my executive team and this new chief that I have, Sean Barnes, who we've hired out of Wisconsin with his theory of change, of leadership. We will see results that I think are unprecedented in this city. We did a national search, and many people may recall that our first national search, I had only received, really the top 3 were internal candidates. We built a city in which I could attract the kind of talent that you see now as part of our administration. So I need to thank DSA. They are a critical downtown partner. They are truly leaders. An example of this kind of partnership you saw in Memorial Stadium redevelopment. Now, the problem with Memorial Stadium redevelopment, which is going to be a phenomenal athletic and music scene. The problem is, in my State of the City speech, I described it after that damn basketball joke. That was the problem. But people still see the collaborative nature of what we're trying to do on our Seattle Center campus. Talk about Spark Block, the partnership that brought new lighting, murals, and activation along 3rd Avenue. Our Office of Arts and Culture, Hope Corps Downtown Mural Project. Last year's the Mural Fest in Belltown have transformed public space with vibrant art. Our Seattle Restored program, led by phenomenal leader Markham McIntyre. 11 businesses transitioned from temporary to long-term leases last year. We supported, through his shop, 3 industry incubators: the M5 Creative Hub for film and other creative ventures, the Climate Innovation Hub to boost our green economy, and soon to open the AI House. Now, we should be very proud of this work. I'm not going to talk a lot about Overlook Walk. You saw some great renditions, but the fact of the matter is these legacy projects are the largest projects we've had since the 1962 World's Fair. They are redefining our city. We are putting ourselves in a position for the world to see as we prepare for the FIFA World Cup 2026, the world to see what this city is that we are driving together. We have been tenacious, relentless on this pursuit to strive for excellence in this city. Today's downtown is not just a picture of progress, it's a testament to what happens when you work hard together. You laugh together, you play together, you have a vision together. So I'll close these comments by saying that we cannot do this in a vacuum. We have to realize in the stage of national politics what we are up against. What is my job as a mayor of one of the largest cities in this country, a city of innovation? Now, we know that we have current litigation against the current administration for funding issues and what we believe we need to protect for our values, for our infrastructure. We're, for example, at a meeting last week with Rick Larson, the ranking Congressman Larson, the ranking member in the Infrastructure and Transportation Infrastructure Committee. But litigation is, of course, oppositional and adversarial. My guess would be there's a few lawyers out there, as I'm a lawyer as well, that is one strategy that must be considered when we are fighting for this beautiful region, this Seattle and this King County and this state. That is one strategy. But there are other strategies as well. I'm involved with a Bloomberg leadership initiative with teams of my staff where we're looking at how do we still optimize who and what we are as a region. I am particularly concerned, and I've talked publicly and nationally about this, about issues in cybersecurity as we deploy and evaluate artificial intelligence. The fact of the matter is when we compete against China as one example, we also have to concern ourselves with protecting ourselves against China, protecting your business interests, protecting our private security. The lists of vulnerabilities that particularly AI presents are pretty significant. We know that the FCC is run by Brendan Carr, who did write the playbook for the FCC's chapter in Project 25. We know that our current president surrounds himself by some of the smartest innovators around. When we drop names like Andreessen or Peter Thiel or David Sachs or Elon Musk, these are smart innovators. And when you look at the world of regulation, I am concerned about our cybersecurity issues, so I will assure to you as your mayor, as the only mayor that was put on the Safety and Security Board for Artificial Intelligence, when I look at the National Institute of Standards and Technology or just one sec here, obviously I'm off script, but I get emotional when I start thinking about it. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, you are seeing massive layoffs. You're seeing, I think last week, 130 people in these critical decisions laid off. That we have to concern ourselves with our protection. So as the chair of the Technology and Innovation Committee for the U.S. Conference of Mayors, I will fight for you that many of our largest employers are in this space. It affects us all. We, under some letters that I had written and got many other mayors to participate in, last year in 2024, we had opposed the American Broadband Deployment Act of 2023, HR 3557. What it did is took away local jurisdictions' ability to sort of look at broadband and high-speed internet and where we could deploy and how we could make sure we have an equitable way to deploy this technology. Last week, keeping my eyes on the Broadband Leadership Act, that again, one can argue, and I will argue, that it weakens local control in some of these important deployments that we should concern ourselves with. And I don't mean to close on a dire note, but the fact of the matter is here in Seattle, these strong partnerships we developed, the strong visionaries that are listening to my words right now, with DSA's outstanding leadership, we still will make 2025 a phenomenal year for us. We are heading in the right direction. We are winners here in this region. We win because we are innovators. We work together. We listen to one another. 2024 was a great year for us, and going into 2025, this is when you dig deep. This is when you work harder. You know, in my athletic background, I lost a few games. All I did was work harder the next day. So, I close by saying let's work harder together this year. We are a family, we are one Seattle, and we're going to rise here in 2025 together. Thank you very much.
Please welcome Ballard Spahr Lane Powell Seattle office managing partner Paige Davis.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is truly a pleasure to be here today on behalf of my firm, Ballard Spahr Lane Powell. We deeply value our ongoing partnership with the Downtown Seattle Association and are honored to be the presenting sponsor of DSA's State of Downtown for the 15th year. Our commitment to this event underscores our dedication to Seattle year. We are also celebrating our recent merger with the law firm Ballard Spahr. This year's theme, Path to Progress, resonates with both downtown Seattle and our firm. Our combination provides us with an expanded footprint of over 750 lawyers in 18 cities nationwide. As a result, we are better equipped than ever to serve our clients, clients like us deeply rooted in Seattle, clients across the country, and clients around the globe. Over the past 150 years, our firm has witnessed and contributed to the significant transformations, events, and investments that have shaped this city. Personally, I have watched the evolution of downtown from my condo on the corner of 2nd and Lenora. I'm a proud downtown resident for over 20 years and so happy to raise my daughter in this beautiful and amazing city. Although the last couple of years have been a little hard on downtown, it feels like once again we are on the brink of something special, some significant change in downtown Seattle. There's palpable momentum and energy in downtown, fueled by major events and projects on the horizon. The Elliott Bay Connection Project and its revitalized downtown parks are underway, set to complete in June of 2026, just in time for us to welcome the world to Seattle for FIFA World Cup. These paths to downtown Seattle's revitalizations have been strengthened by alliances, public, private, and non-profit partnerships committed to rejuvenating downtown. However, although progress has been made, we all recognize that there is more work to be done. Some of the challenges we face as a city, and indeed as a nation, seem daunting. Our keynote speaker, Mark Dunkelman, addresses these very issues in his book, Why Nothing Works, Who Killed Progress, and How to Bring It Back. Released just 7 days ago, Mark's book explores historical, social, and political factors contributing to stalled advancement in areas like infrastructure and innovation. Importantly, he also offers some insights on how to overcome these barriers and reinvigorate progress. Mark is a distinguished researcher, writer, and public policy expert, known for his work on community dynamics and societal change. He's a fellow in international and public affairs at Brown University, focusing on the architecture of the American community and the progressive movement's evolving view. Mark has had significant roles in Washington, D.C., including as a fellow at the Clinton Foundation and on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Mark's most recent book has garnered attention from notable figures such as Ed Glazer, the keynote speaker at this event 2 years ago, and Jennifer Pakla, founder of Code for America, who wrote, "So much hinges on understanding what Mark Dunkelman so clearly explains in his book. Why we got stuck in a pattern of blocking everything from housing to transportation to green energy infrastructure and the price that we're paying for it now. Getting unstuck must become the most urgent priority of the left if we value our democracy." James Carville wrote, and you'll know that these are his words, "America is living the truth of the old saying, any old jackass can kick down a barn, but it takes a carpenter to build one. Today, it feels like anyone can stop progress, but nobody's capable of starting it." Mark is the author of The Vanishing Neighbor, The Transformation of the American Community, as well, and his work has been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the LA Times, the Atlantic, and many more. And I also overheard that he has the cutest family on Instagram. So please help me welcome Mark Dunkelman.
Well, thank you. It's a thrill to be here. It's been a week since the book came out, and this is my first time talking about it publicly to a live audience. So we'll see how this goes. I'll get started not by talking about Seattle and all its challenges and all of its opportunities, but by something closer to home, which is I'd like to put you in your own mind in the moment that you last had to choose with your family where to go to dinner on a Friday night. It's an awkward conversation in many families because everyone has a different opinion. I have a wife and two gremlins, two teenagers. When we decide sort of on a whim on a Friday night that we're going to go out to dinner, we immediately start into a conversation where it becomes very clear that there's some deep-seated feelings about what the opportunities are for each of us. My wife, who is not a vegetarian, always wants to somehow send us to a vegetarian place where we're going to be served, unseasoned quinoa or something like that. My older daughter insists only on going to restaurants that have fried chicken sandwiches, preferably holding the chicken. And my younger daughter, who's sort of a spark plug, wants always some weird place that'll have like donuts and sushi. And so this begins this conversation inside the family about where we're going to go and who should get to decide. And just sort of as a thought experiment, you can imagine lots of ways of resolving this. We could vote. Just the parents could decide. Everyone could have a chance, and we would, you know, today would be my turn, and the next would be my wife's turn, and the next would. But all of these ways of deciding how we're going to provision this question of where we're going to eat have advantages and disadvantages. Government is a lot of things to a lot of people, but at root, it is a mechanism to make these sorts of decisions society-wide. It's a way for us all to decide together, have some system of deciding where the bridge is going to go, or who's going to suffer when we put up a new housing development, and who's going to benefit. Where are we going to put the transmission line that brings the clean energy into the city? And the argument of my book is essentially that we in America have had differing views. We've had sort of a different zeitgeist at different moments about what exactly the process should be of making those decisions. At the turn of the 19th century, turn of the 20th century, the late 1800s, early 1900s, what was clear was that the kids in the car deciding where to go to dinner had too much power. At the time, the kids were political machines, robber barons, people who did not have the greater public interest in mind. And the public figures, the elected officials, didn't have that much power. So at the time, the zeitgeist, with a burgeoning middle class in the middle of the beginning or the middle point of the Industrial Revolution, was to try to give more power to the grown-ups, to the people in the front of the car. Let them make the big decisions. That meant, for the most part, that we were going to professionalize government. It meant putting power in the hands of blue ribbon commissions, of true scientific experts. And this wasn't just in government, this was sort of society-wide. America was in a moment where we were looking for true experts in every realm. It's when bar associations were established, when academic disciplines came about, when the medical profession began to divide into specialties. We wanted real experts to act in public life. And in government, that meant blue ribbon commissions, it meant public authorities, all these institutions that were designed to push power above the level of political machines and sort of everyday, workaday politicians, so that real professional experts would be in charge. In the early days, the sort of evidence of this was the creation of the Federal Reserve in Washington, the Federal Trade Commission during the Wilson administration. But it happened sort of all over the country. In cities, more and more groups like this, which I know that this particular organization began in 1958, but there were sort of chambers of commerce that began to be established around the country, and they would become sort of powerful figures in each civic community. In the Great Depression, it was this way of thinking, this notion that we should push power up into the hands of responsible bodies that would have real power, really took off because the country simply wasn't prepared for the economic devastation that existed, and the existing social safety net wasn't holding up. So during the Depression, many of us remember from high school, from our high school classes, that there was the Social Security Administration, the Works Progress Administration, a whole alphabet soup of programs, but maybe the quintessential New Deal program was the Tennessee Valley Authority. And the Tennessee Valley Authority was this remarkable institution that most of us don't really know much about, but it was designed to wire up all the poor farms in the Tennessee Valley, which is the Upper South, which had been neglected by private industry because they didn't believe that the load drawn by these poor farms would be worth the cost of extending the wires. And Roosevelt's intention was to dam various rivers, to reseed various forests, to remake the region and the people in it into sort of modern coastal people in an advanced society. And he gave the power to do that to essentially one single man. His name, now forgotten to history, was David Lilienthal, and he ran this huge organization that basically remade a region of the country the size of England. The TVA became a model, a sort of an intellectual model for decades after. The Marshall Plan, which rebuilt Europe after the Second World War, was the TVA for Europe. The Vietnamization decades after, when we were trying to rebuild Vietnam, was they were going to do a TVA for the Mekong Delta. Before he was assassinated, Martin Luther King wanted to do a Marshall Plan for the black community in America. So this idea of pushing power up into a big institution that would make big, powerful decisions sort of became a norm, an ideal, and people in the greatest generation certainly embraced it. What happened because we had this worldview and we were pushing power into these institutions is that something developed in America that hadn't existed before, and it's what we now know as the establishment. There was a phrase that was popular at the time, which was, "You can't fight City Hall." And Mr. Mayor, that didn't mean that you couldn't oust an incumbent mayor if they were unpopular. That happens from time to time. What it meant was that there were people in public life who were even more powerful than the mayor, or who sat behind the mayor, and no matter who was sitting in that chair, they could control what was going on in a city. And the establishment existed in sort of all realms of life. We had an image, America had an image of what these people looked like. They were generally men in their midlife. They wore charcoal suits and fedoras, and they looked like this, and they frowned with the weight of responsibility on their shoulders. And they were sort of an archetype. And the notion was, in the 1940s and 1950s, that they were the people who were going to find America's way forward, that they were sort of a crucial linchpin to moving the country forward. And then something began to happen. In the late 50s and beginning in the 60s, people began to question the establishment, began sort of on the fringe. There was a Columbia professor named C. Wright Mills who began writing about the power elite. Some of you will have read C. Wright Mills in high school or college. There were the beat poets. There was the New Left, who wrote the Port Huron Statement in 1962. And this group began to take the opposite view of the establishment. Their notion was that the problem wasn't that power was insufficiently concentrated in institutions that could make big change. It was that those institutions were themselves corrupt and that power needed to be returned to the people. And some of that was generational. Some of that was that these were boomers who hadn't lived through Depression, who hadn't seen the federal government or a local government really have a dramatically positive impact on American life. But some of it was evidence that the establishment had in fact gone wrong. That was true in all sorts of facets of American life. Maybe the most obvious example during the 60s was Vietnam, a war that was pursued by the best and brightest was the term of derision used by David Halberstam to describe the sort of elite who led the foreign policy establishment at the time. It was in evidence when the agricultural establishment allowed us to use pesticides that caused terrible birth defects. It was evident in the impact of urban renewal, which was a program that Democrats and Republicans had supported in the 40s and 50s to basically tear down what people in the establishment viewed as slums and replace them with bigger, better housing. It was evident in Ralph Nader's famous book, Unsafe at Any Speed, which was about how the auto industry was building cars that weren't safe. And then finally, two things happened to sort of nail the coffin on the establishment. One was Watergate, which showed that the power elite in America really were corrupt. And the second was a book that was the inspiration for my book, which was a book called The Power Broker, which won the Pulitzer Prize in 1974, about a fellow named Robert Moses, who had been the quintessential establishment figure in New York City for 30 or 40 years. He'd been never elected to any body, never been elected to office at all, but he had managed to find his way into very powerful positions across the board. He'd built highways and parks and housing developments. He'd built the Lincoln Center and the UN headquarters. He was just immensely powerful. And the most poignant story in his book was about his effort to build the Cross Bronx Expressway. Everyone opposed him. Everyone thought it was a mistake. And yet he just turned a deaf ear and built this trench through the South Bronx, turned it into what would later become sort of a symbol of the American urban wasteland. This sparked a sort of a cultural shift, these changes. And you could see it in the culture, you could see it in the movies. I don't know if many of you remember the movie Chinatown, which was a movie about a sort of an evil guy who steals water from the valley outside of LA and brings it into the city. Or you remember The Graduate and the guy who said plastics was the future. Remember Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or the tagline from the movie Network, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." Those were all stories about the establishment being bad rather than good. The cultural zeitgeist had changed by the 70s. And in reaction to that change, we in America began to hold a different worldview, which was solving our problems was not going to be fixed. We weren't going to fix our problems by pushing power up to powerful men, for the most part, who would do the bidding of the broader society. It would be fixed by pushing power down to ordinary people. So this is a story about moving power in the discussion among my family about where to eat dinner from the parents to the kids. And what would you do if you were a kid who wanted to have more weight to throw around when we were selecting restaurants? You would put restrictions on what I could choose as a parent, right? You would make a statement or a rule that we couldn't go to any restaurant that didn't have a fried chicken sandwich. And in essence, that's what reformers have done for the last 50 years. In each case, we've seen the abuse of power by the establishment and reacted by trying to put guardrails around what the establishment can do. And we've done that in all sorts of realms. I'm sure that everyone in this room has a story in their own mind about a moment that they saw government do something that seemed ridiculous and overdone, and we should just be able to get this done immediately, but we can't because of this regulation or that. But you've got a whole notion across the board. We've got environmental regulations, we've got zoning regulations, we've got historic preservation, we've got transit development norms. All of these well-intentioned because they were born from a notion that the Robert Moses establishment was bad and that they needed to be held to account and that we couldn't let them run rampant again. But over the course of 50 years of seeing every problem as a problem of too much power at the top and at finding a solution in putting new guardrails around that power, we've created a system in almost every realm of public life where there is simply too much procedure and we can't get to a decision. The bad thing about the establishment was that only a few people could influence the decision, but those people had the discretion to decide. We now have a system where the opposite is true. Almost anyone can say no because they can find some part of the process of making a decision, of the procedures, where they can hold things up, where they can object. Sometimes those objections are legitimate, sometimes they're not, but overall we've lost the ability to ratify a trade-off. The bridge needs to be built somewhere. Whose home is going to be in the way of the base? We're going to have to take someone's home. Who's going to decide? We need to build clean energy. We need to bring clean energy from where it's generated, either offshore or solar power, hydro, you name it. There need to be transmission lines that bring that stuff into the places where it'll be used. Those power lines have to go somewhere. We need someone to be able to choose where that's going to go. The challenge today, and I'll try to keep this short so I give more time to future speakers, is that we have overcorrected for the problems that were made so apparent during the Robert Moses era. We've gone from a place where powerful figures had too much discretion to one where no one can say yes to a project. And the solution is not to say that we go back to the old Robert Moses era. It's to recognize that these are two legitimate, well-intentioned impulses. One, to empower those to decide, one, to protect those who can't protect themselves against the powerful. And we need to find some new balance between the two. So that's the central message of my book. It's not, I want to be clear, it's not that there is any single law that can be written here that would change this. It needs to be a different mentality among reformers of all types. We need both to protect those who are vulnerable and to empower those who can do things for the public and in the public interest. So I hope, see it that way. I hope I've given you some language and a way to think about this in a helpful way. And I say, I've been in your city for all of 24 hours. It's beautiful. You should be congratulated. I was thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to talk to you, and I hope to talk about it soon. Thank you.
Please welcome DSA President and CEO John Scholes.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be with you here today. It's great to be back in the convention center. Thanks to the team here for taking great care of us. Thanks to their new CEO, Jennifer Lemaster, downtown neighbor and new to that role from Atlanta. She's been a great partner, and we thank her and her team for having us back. And thank you to Mayor Harrell for his convicted leadership, his commitment to the revitalization of our downtown, for his partnership. We're on a path to progress thanks to his leadership and his action, along with that of the City Council as well. And thank you to Mark, who's given us a lot to think about. I encourage you, if you have not, to crack open his book, to take a look at some of the coverage he's gotten since its release over the last 7 days. And Mark was kind enough to sit down with us earlier today and record a Seattle City Makers podcast. So you can tune into that when it drops in 2 weeks or so. Just a special acknowledgement and hello to my wife, Erin, who's joining me today. I appreciate her support and putting up with me, along with my son, Parker, who's grown up in downtown and could probably deliver this speech. So I appreciate them being here today. We gather here today because we all believe in the significance of our downtown. We recognize that downtowns are where we come together. They're the center of culture and commerce. They're where we meet to mourn, as so many did following the tragedies of 9/11. But they're also where we gather to celebrate during big moments in our city, like this one.
12 They're bringing the trophy home. Your Seahawks, Super Bowl 48 champions.
That was a great day downtown. Who was there? Yeah. And they're places we come to mark key moments in history.
Seattle let loose all the pent-up emotions of 3 years and 8 months of war. And to the victors, the spoils. Peace, it's wonderful.
Who was there? To your hands. And to share in experiences that we can't get anywhere else.
Yes, I get lost in my mind. Lost, I get lost, I get lost.
I've been humming that song for 3 weeks, and you're going to hum it in the shower tomorrow morning, I guarantee you. Downtown Seattle is everybody's neighborhood. These 3 square miles are responsible for half the city jobs and a majority of the city's tax collection. What matters here matters to the rest of the city. And in an age where we're more alone and lonely than ever, downtowns are facilitators of connection and community. Downtowns help remind us what we're a part of. So I want to share with you a few highlights of the last 12 months, some stats that demonstrate that we're clearly on a path to progress, and highlight a few things to come in 2025. And as we reflect on the last 12 months, it's clear we're making progress after a number of challenging years coming out of COVID. We are making progress to revitalize our downtown. And there was much to celebrate over these last 12 months. As has been noted, the Overlook Walk opened in early October. What a home run for our city. It was well worth the wait. We looked at the pedestrian volume the first week that this incredible new public space opened, and it was 140% higher than the week in the previous year. And a ton of locals coming to check out this experience. Just under that overlook, of course, in late August, the brand new aquarium, Ocean Pavilion, opened its doors. The aquarium last year welcomed 1 million people through the doors, a record for that incredible attraction. We had 276 cruise boats dock in Elliott Bay with about 1.75 million passengers. We had more ambassadors deployed on our streets than ever before, 165 total downtown ambassadors. We welcomed 88 new street-level businesses, retailers, restaurants, and bars in our downtown. That shot on the left is Olympia Coffee over there in the City Center building. If you haven't been there, yeah, shout out to the folks from the City Center building. A beautiful redevelopment and reinvestment in that space and a great coffee shop. And some of our long-standing downtown businesses had their best year. This is David Butler that I'm sure many of you know at Look of East. He's been in that spot over at 7th in Virginia for just over 10 years. He signed another 10-year lease. He had his best year ever last year. And he had his best January this past January. He said every January over the last 6 years has been an increase in sales. So you all say you're doing dry January. David's numbers suggest otherwise. Fair Start reopened their restaurant after a renovation at 7th and Virginia. As the mayor noted, we had an investment of new lighting and murals and art and a general cleanup on 3rd Avenue that sparked a lot of interest in additional investments, in more lighting, in more art, in more beautification that will continue down that corridor beginning next month. 3,000 residential units were delivered and completed in our downtown. And we have more residential units under construction today than any downtown west of Chicago. Amazon returned to 5 days in the office in early January. The Seattle Goodwill says they are good with ring lights and athletic wear, athleisure. They're good there. It was a big year for the arts in downtown. Gage Academy moved its location from North Capitol Hill into space in one of Amazon's buildings on Westlake Avenue. SIF celebrated its 50th year with its strongest attendance since the start of the pandemic. And the Allen Family Foundation invested $9.5 million in arts and cultural organizations in our downtown. And you still have a few more days to go see Hamilton across the street. On First Hill, Swedish's new North Tower came out of the ground. They will double their capacity when this project in Block 95 is complete in just a few years. This is being designed by DSA member Perkins and Will and constructed by Mortensen. We are fortunate to have this kind of healthcare in our community. This will result in a new emergency department, additional ICU beds, an incredible new facility for our city and region and beyond. And downtown leaders from across the world gathered in Seattle in early September. We were fortunate to host 1,400 of our colleagues for the International Downtown Association here in Seattle and in partnership with the city's Office of Economic Development. And as the mayor noted, our local leaders in the last year took important actions to improve safety on our streets, to help more people get housing and services. I commend our mayor, our council, our county prosecutor, our county executive, and our city attorney for all of their leadership and action over the last year on this front. We have to get this right. Downtowns and cities have never worked if they weren't first safe, healthy, and welcoming to everybody. And I want to acknowledge our new police chief, Chief Sean Barnes, who is here today, and our Downtown West Precinct Captain Rob Brown as well. Thank you for your work, and thank you to your officers. You know, we were stuck for a number of years in Seattle. We were paralyzed in our inability to distinguish between those who were hurting and needed help on our streets and those who were out hurting others. And we decided not to do anything for either group. We were paralyzed. We couldn't distinguish between either situation, and we chose not to intervene as a community. And we saw the results of that. We saw a record number of people dying on our streets. We saw tents in parks and on sidewalks. We saw violent crime rise to levels we hadn't seen since the early 1990s. We're on a much better path today because we are intervening. We're helping people that need help, and we're holding accountable those who are out hurting others. That's our approach if we're going to be successful on any other of the strategies that we're implementing. So all of these investments and these openings and the actions I just detailed, they're paying off. And you can feel it on the streets, and you can see it in the data and in the numbers. And I want to share some important data points that have been compiled by our great research team that we're tracking regularly to measure the health of our downtown. As the mayor noted, violent crime is down across downtown, and particularly in the core of downtown, in the 2nd and Pike and 3rd and Pike area, which were the blocks that had the most violent crime and the most drug overdoses of any blocks in our city. Thanks to the efforts of SPD and other city departments along with our team that began in September in that area, we are seeing significant results. Violent crime from September to December in that part of town is down 24% year over year, down 50% from 2021. Drug overdoses are down as well. And we have a record number of people living downtown, about 106,000. We're seeing slow but steady return to office with the strongest weeks since February of 2020 back in January. We continue to see these numbers moving in the right direction. And nearly 10 million people that live within domestic travelers visited downtown. So not including international travels, we had 10 million folks visit downtown Seattle last year. And we've seen an increase in locals, folks who live within 10 miles. We had 1 million folks who live within 10 miles visit our downtown last year. And this is an important demographic and one that we're tracking carefully. And after losing market share in this area over the last year, we're beginning to regain relevancy with locals, which is critical to our success and our revitalization. Locals have to love our downtown first, and then everybody else from all other parts of the country and world will too. And we were in the field just a few weeks ago testing the attitudes and perceptions of locals, trying to understand their perspective on our downtown. And there's some good news here as well. 85% of the 500 or so folks that we surveyed within the city of Seattle believe that the revitalization of downtown is important to the health of our city. They get that even if they don't work downtown or live downtown, what happens here matters to the health of their neighborhood, to the quality of their parks, to the tax revenue that's important for their school and the human services and other things that they rely on. And 72% of the folks who had been downtown recently reported a positive experience. So this tells us we do have a gap between those that are coming more frequently than others in their perceptions of their experience and their sense of their experience. And we looked at the folks who are coming at least once a month compared to those that are coming less often. And the folks coming at least once a month have 3 times more positive of a perspective on their experience in our downtown. So these are positive metrics. The things we want to see going down, violent crime and people suffering on our streets, are going down. The things we want to see going up are generally going up. And we have much to look forward to this year. I want to highlight some of the upcoming milestones and things for us to look forward to in 2025. As has been noted, the Elliott Bay Connections project has broken ground, will be completed by 2026, June to be specific, of 2026. This is, as I've described it, the cherry on top of the sundae, which is the waterfront project. It is a capstone of additional investments in Myrtle Edwards Park and Centennial Park. We'll have a new concession where you can get a bite to eat and get something to drink. Public restrooms, hallelujah, in this park as well, and a new protected greenway connecting the Olympic Sculpture Park to the Overlook Walk. So that experience that we're now soon to be able to enjoy from Pioneer Square up to the Overlook will be able to continue north into the Sculpture Park and Myrtle Edwards and Centennial Park. Cannonball Arts will open later this summer, an investment in the old Bed Bath & Beyond space, 66,000 square foot contemporary interactive art complex with 2D and 3D, an incredible live music event space in the basement level. I got through there a couple months ago with Greg Lundgren, pictured here, and Joe Paganelli, and this gorilla that they have sitting in that space that's just sitting there. They've got framing going on. This project is under construction and again is going to be a huge addition to our arts and cultural scene in downtown when it is complete later this summer. And we have 2 new indoor pickleball event spaces and recreation spaces to look forward to opening later this year. One brought to us by Ethan Stoll, the south end of downtown, and one coming to Rainier Square, thanks to the good folks at Wright Runstad. So pickleball fans, you've got more indoor places to play, and those sounds will be kept indoors and contained in those places for the rest of us. The Port of Seattle projects a record cruise season with nearly 300 boats coming into our downtown that will begin in April, 1.9 million passengers. And for the first time, we will have shore power, electric shore power at all 3 berths. Congratulations to the Port on their $40+ million investment. This is what it looks like, that photo in the middle to plug in one of those ships. Just like your Tesla, just like that. But congratulations to them on getting this project done ahead of schedule. This was not going to be done, wasn't intended to be done this last year, but it was. So congratulations to them. And in June, we will have 6 Club Cup soccer matches at Lumen Field. This is the warm-up party for FIFA in 2026. When we have the biggest party on the planet, the biggest event on the planet coming to downtown Seattle. Equinox will open its first Seattle location in the Rainier Square building in May. And you're probably asking yourselves, what is that machine there? I learned about this a couple weeks ago. That is what will be, I think, Seattle and maybe probably Washington State and maybe the Pacific Northwest. First AI-powered massage machine. There is an emergency button. It's that little red one, I think, in front of that gal, so that's available. About 5 minutes in, it whispers in your ear and asks you if the pressure is all right. And I thought this was a nice touch. After your session, it's waiting out in the hall for you with a glass of water, and it pats you on the back and says, take gentle care of yourself the rest of the day. And there's sort of a moment going on this block across Kitty Corner, and I'm not allowed to say who's coming in, but there's a new lease that's been signed for the former specialty space, which is a 7,000 square foot space that's been empty since the start of COVID, and a local operator will soon open their doors there sometime between May and July. And of course, PCC will be coming back as well, and we welcome them back to downtown. We have new ways to get around downtown to look forward to. Light rail between downtown and Bellevue, which will give us about 20-minute ride between the two downtowns, will open later this year, we hope. And these Lime gliders, they were being tested out on the streets of Seattle a couple months ago. We'll have a fleet of these out and about in just a few months. Seattle, I learned a few months ago, is Lime's #7 market out of 280 markets across the world. The scooters and the bikes and now these gliders have proved a popular way to get around our city. We have new food and cocktail and retail destinations to look forward to. Carmine's will open a new location in the heart of downtown. Tom's Watch Bar, a great sports bar out of Denver, will open 2 locations, one by Climate Pledge, the other by Lumen Field. Death & Co., an incredible cocktail bar, will open in Pioneer Square. And a new rooftop lounge, that's what's pictured there in the middle, will open atop the Westland Hotel in Pioneer Square. Yeah, a good number of new retail and restaurant and cocktail experiences for us to look forward to. And at the corner of 4th and Pike in the former Arc'teryx space, Portland Leather Goods, outfit out of Portland. They've got one location in the Pearl District, and they've expanded to Austin. They'll soon be expanding to Seattle with a shop at 4th and Pike. So we welcome our friends from Portland and their investment in our city. And next month, the YWCA will open after extensive renovations at 5th and Seneca. 100-plus-year-old building, improving the experience for women and kids, and providing additional housing as well at that important location. Over at the Seattle Art Museum next month, Ai Weiwei, an incredible exhibit, will open its doors. This is huge. It's going to be a huge invitation for people from around the state, around the country, and beyond to visit Seattle and to visit SAM. And hats off to the great team at SAM for landing this, and to their new CEO, Scott Stuhlen, who's somebody I've enjoyed getting to know, just an incredible leader in our community, and we look forward to working with him and his team. This is going to be phenomenal for our downtown and the whole city. And thanks to the leadership of the mayor and Council President Nelson, we will soon deploy 30 digital wayfinding kiosks in our downtown that will give folks new information on how to get around and enjoy all these new attractions, whether it be the waterfront or new restaurants and retailers. And it's also a platform for us to promote all the great things happening in downtown, and also to bring more digital art into downtown. So after a long wait, we look forward to locating these in the public right-of-way in downtown and helping people find their way to great events and attractions. Memorial Stadium is such a great project and public-private partnership to celebrate. Congratulations to the folks there and the partnership between the School District City and the One Roof Foundation for getting this unstuck. It's been stuck for so many years, and we're going to have an incredible facility that will seat 8,000, be a great experience for all the kids in our city and athletics, but we'll be able to have a lot of other events there too, concerts and other community gatherings. It's going to be terrific for Seattle Center. We have a busy convention center to look forward to. 93 conventions booked between this building and the Arts Building. Nearly 370,000 visitors expected to come through. This is one I'm looking forward to. The 12th annual Rubik's Cube World Championship will be here. I didn't know this was a thing until a week or so ago, but they will be here July 3rd through the 6th. I went down a rabbit hole the other night watching these videos of these guys. They do this, guys and gals, they do this in like 4 seconds. I think the world record's like 3.7. but I was transfixed by this. So mark your calendars, July 3rd, Rubik's Cube, World Championships. And then finally, the completion of the waterfront project is going to be worth the wait later this year when it is finally all done. It's spectacular to see what's been opened and delivered today, and there's more to come with the playgrounds and bike lanes and landscaping that has all yet to be complete. And we're doing more than opening a new park in our city. We're creating and opening up a whole new set of experiences for people to enjoy without a loud, dirty, double-decker highway that served an important purpose for quite some time, roaring overhead. And there's not many downtowns where you can walk along an incredible public space like this and look out to your west at a national park in the Olympic Peninsula and have these great urban amenities, arts and entertainment and sports and food and music and shopping to the east. And this is well worth the wait, and congratulations to every single person that played a role in delivering this to our city over these last many years. It's going to be a big invitation to locals to come back downtown, either for the first time since COVID or more frequently than what they're visiting today. And Seafair will kick off its 76th year at Pier 62 on the waterfront on June 20th, the first day of summer, with a big block party to kick off Seafair's summer of activations and events and traditions. And I look forward to seeing all of this take shape under the new leadership of their CEO, Emily Cantrell, who's here with us today. So when you add up what we've seen over the last year and what we have to look forward to, and you look at the numbers of the things that we want to see go down, and the things we want to see go up, it's clear we're on a path to progress. And I think this path in our trajectory is, really fueled by what's always made Seattle great. Perseverance, innovation, daring to think big. In downtown, we've got this great mix of residential and arts and culture and sports and entertainment. We didn't spread everything out like many downtowns. That's been one of our assets. We're continuing to invest, the private sector, the philanthropic sector, local government, the public sector. And we're partnering again. We're working together. The city, the county, the business community. That's always been the recipe to the great things that we've been able to deliver in our downtown. And we've avoided the doom loop. It was predicted that cities like Seattle and San Francisco and these top-tier, high-flying downtowns that suffered so much through COVID would sort of spiral into this doom loop. That's not been the case here. And I would suggest we're on the precipice of a bloom loop. But we can take nothing for granted. I think all of this is incredibly fragile. And it wasn't too long ago that we made public policy in this town by listening to the loudest voice in the room, or by slogans and hashtags, or in some cases by intimidation of people going into council members' homes at night and shouting across their lawns. And our inability to distinguish between those who were hurting on our streets and those that were hurting others, and to not intervene, was probably the most significant encapsulation of what wasn't working here in Seattle. But we're on a better track now. And I'm grateful for the public officials in this room, for the investment of the private sector and the philanthropic sector. And grateful for all of you for your membership, your continued participation in the Downtown Seattle Association and in this downtown. So thank you, and thank you to our incredible team who has an incredible commitment to this, our mission, to this event, to attention to detail. I couldn't work with a better group of people, wouldn't ask for a better team, and couldn't be in a place that had more to work with, more resources and assets and commitment than what we have in this downtown. So let's not squander it. Let's take it into the next gear as we enter 2025. This place is worth it. What matters here matters to the rest of our city, to our region, and to our state. And with that, it is my pleasure to welcome to the stage the 24th governor of the state of Washington, Governor Bob Ferguson. He's the 24th governor who celebrated his birthday on the 23rd of this month. He's at the 20th State of Downtown on the 25th of this month. I don't know what any of that means, but he's a fourth-generation Washingtonian. He's lived and worked on both sides of the mountains. He's a son of a school teacher and a Boeing employee. He's a dad of twins. He's somebody who's committed his life to public service, and we appreciate him being in the neighborhood and coming over to share a few remarks.
Thanks, John. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much. And first, please join me in a round of applause for John and his team and all the fantastic work they do for our community. I'm mindful that the only thing standing between you and a wonderful reception and great food and drink are my remarks. So this will be very short. I'll keep this brief. But I do want to mention a couple things. Number one, I think you heard earlier from Sung Yang. I think he may be wrapping up after I speak. Sung and I went to college together. We shared an office in student government together. He was my campaign manager when I ran for student body president at the University of Washington, successfully, by the way. So don't get any ideas about asking him about my college days, because he and a bunch of college friends all signed very airtight non-disclosure agreements before I ever ran for Attorney General. So that's locked in. And a couple things I'll say real quick. Number one, about downtown. So I grew up on Queen Anne. John mentioned my parents, special education, public school teacher. My dad was just a career guy at Boeing for 40 years. They had 7 kids. I'm one of them. And that was back when you could afford a house on Queen Anne Hill with that kind of life. And so I grew up, they were not helicopter parents, okay, to put it mildly. The 7 kids just roamed free back in those days, and I certainly did. So at a very, very young age, I was coming downtown. I was taking the bus downtown. When I went out to the last exit on Brooklyn at the University of Washington, where I played a lot of chess, I was taking buses through downtown. Downtown's been a part of my life, my entire life. I spent more than 20 years working in downtown at the King County Council and in the AG's office. So I have a deep appreciation, for all that you do to keep Seattle, downtown Seattle, what it needs to be. Vibrant for everybody, for businesses, for individuals, for commuters, you name it, for workers. And so first, thanks for all you do. Number two, I wanted to mention, I'm sorry I missed the remarks of the author, Mark Dunkelman. And Mark, are you still here somewhere, by the way? Hey, it's good to see you. So I've listened to you on a podcast about your book, by the way, and I read a chapter of your book, I think, about Massachusetts trying to get a clean energy project, I think was one of the chapters. So I'm deeply interested in what you're writing about, because, look, will tell you that, so I'm new at this job as governor, but if I want you to know one thing about me, it would be this. Few things drive me more crazy in the world than bureaucracy in government that gets in the way of serving the people, okay? Thank you. It drives me insane. I mean, it really does. And look, I'm in politics because I believe government, the role of government is to help make your lives and the lives of all Washingtonians a little bit better, and to not make your life more difficult, right? That's why I'm in politics. But when I gave my inaugural address, I gave a sentence that I didn't think would get quite so much attention, but I said something like, I'm not here to defend government, I'm here to reform it, okay, was a line I said in my inaugural address. Well, I believe that, right? Government does great things, but does it need to be reformed? You better believe it does. And there are numerous examples of that. There was a Seattle Times article just recently, many of you might have read it, and it was about individuals who have mental health issues. For folks who work downtown or spend time downtown, you know what we're talking about. And it's a group of folks with mental health issues who are really in a difficult situation, where they become a threat to themselves or to others, and they need to be involuntarily committed, right? And there's a whole legal process for that, as you probably know. Well, the University of Washington stepped up recently, opened a new $250 million Center for Behavioral Health and Learning, and it's designed to house 75 patients who are involuntarily committed because they are a potential threat to themselves or to others. What the Seattle Times wrote about in their article was the fact that because there was a disagreement between the public defenders who do the work and others in the county and funding, that literally of the 75 essentially beds that were available to this population, only 19 were filled. The number was decreasing, and the University of Washington, this is a $250 million operation they've set up to really address a real need, that the University of Washington was going to have to start laying off their workers who help these people because there's no work to be done. So there's a Seattle Times article about this a few weeks ago. So I read that article. So I said to my team, look, it's not the governor's job necessarily, right? But I said, let's see what we can do to break this logjam. Long story short, a member of my team, David Frocht, a former state senator, brought the stakeholders together and hammered out a deal. So in a matter of weeks, we'll be reopening all that space for those individuals, right? That's a good thing. It's a good thing for those additional nearly 60 people, right, who will get the help that they most certainly need. It's certainly good for folks who are otherwise interacting with them if they're a threat to themselves or to others. That's good for public safety. That's good all the way around. But it's an example of where government breaks down, okay, and is not solving problems. It's the kind of article that if a Washingtonian reads it, they say to themselves, this is crazy. Why can't we solve that problem? So I had a cabinet meeting on Monday, by the way, and with my cabinet, and I use this as an example. I said, I literally want every single week, I want one of you to bring me a problem like that we can try to solve. Beyond your normal work of helping folks out, like something that just seems like there's a bottleneck and it would benefit from the governor being involved or the highest levels of my administration being involved to try and break a logjam. Hey, if you've got ideas, send them to me, right? I've already told you about Sung. Send him to Sung. Let me know, right? He'll get it to me, believe me. But I'm serious about this, right? We're not going to be perfect as a government. We certainly are not. But we need to do a better job of breaking those things down. Last thing I just will say real quick is, you know we're facing a big budget challenge as a state. It's many billions of dollars. And, I'm determined to change the way we budget as a state, okay? I've said many times, we're not in a recession. We should not be facing a $14 billion budget shortfall. I get when there's a recession, there are challenges for any government. Just like for a family, if you lose a job, there's a budget challenges. Or for a business, if something happens, that's not the situation we're in, right? The state made certain decisions about spending, okay, and assuming certain revenue growth that was not realistic. I just want to be clear, we're going to solve this problem this legislative session, but I've told everybody who will listen to me, I don't plan on every year as a governor going through this exercise of trying to face a multi-billion-dollar shortfall, okay? That makes no sense to me. And so I'll be announcing on Thursday, multiple billions of dollars of efficiencies and cuts that my team and I have gone through the budget pretty much every day since I got in office to identify that. That's not going to get us all the way there yet. We've still got a couple months of legislative session, but I want to communicate to each and every one of you, okay, that, hey, we are taking this budget shortfall seriously. We're going to look at our government and say, hey, can we improve how we're doing this? Do we need to make changes in how we do business? Can we find efficiencies? Do we need to make cuts? Do we have to cut certain spending? So you stay tuned for that announcement. There's more work to be done. But we have a lot of challenges. The good news is, as a state, we have the most beautiful state with the best people, the most resilient people, the most innovative people. Folks, I'm looking at you, right? And that, as a fourth-generation Washingtonian, that's what gets me excited every day to go to work on your behalf. Send me your ideas to how to improve government. I'm serious. Send them to me, and we're interested in tackling these issues. John, thanks to you and your team for the work you do. Thanks to all of you for letting me crash your meeting for a few minutes, and I hope you all have a great evening. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, Governor Ferguson. Okay, folks, that is the end of the program. I want to thank our sponsors, speakers, Mayor Harrell, Governor Ferguson, and all of you for attending the 2025 State of Downtown. Now, time to get out to the hall for some great music, food, and booze. Thank you all.